Hello, everybody. I'm going to tell you a delightful story.
Now, I want you to make yourselves comfortable and settle back.
Now, are you all ready? Here we go.
I'm very happy to share with you this episode in Danger Mouse's career, because the work I'm going to discuss, and which I discovered on this occasion, amazed me. Before going any further, an explanation is necessary. This is not an ordinary album, far from it. Rome is, in brief, a pseudo soundtrack designed for a spaghetti western. Vintage instruments, Morricone's musicians, a mythical studio in Rome, Danger Mouse and the Italian composer Daniele Luppi bring back to life the music of Italian Western from the 70s in a tribute album. Nota bene, the numerous quotes come from Daniele Luppi. The Rose and the Broken Neck featuring Jack White. If it's said that all roads lead to Rome, the path that led Danger Mouse and Daniele Luppi to the release of their album was long and winding. The fruit of the collaboration between the two musicians, Rome was not made in a day, but in 5 years. United by a common love for spaghetti western music, Danger Mouse and Daniele Luppi met in the mid-2000s. Burton had just released the Grey album, mixing the Beatles' White Album and Jay-Z's Black Album. This approach already announced his musical eclecticism, which he would continue to confirm by multiplying projects, jumping from one musical genre to another. Seasons 3 featuring Norah Jones. It was this refusal of labels that seduced Daniele Luppi. Although relatively unknown outside his native Italy, Luppi had just signed An Italian Story, a tribute album to Italian soundtracks from the 60s and 70s. A mutual friend introduced us, thinking we could share our taste for 60s production. I was impressed by Brian's collection of Western music. He wasn't a fake enthusiast with 3 compilations, but a real connoisseur. Because before becoming Danger Mouse, the American had studied cinema at university. I came to soundtracks through films. I started in a fairly banal way with Sergio Leone's trilogy. Then I discovered musicians less visible than Morricone, Bruno Nicolai, Francesco De Masi, Alessandro Alessandroni. I liked the mix of genres that these musics allowed, the way the classical heritage rubbed shoulders with psychedelic elements, jazz influences, dramatic guitars, something both traditional and innovative. The duo soon plans to co-write an album to pay tribute to these musics. They define a set of specifications. Rome will be made with the musicians who accompanied Morricone in the 60s, recorded on tape in analog, with the instruments and the studios of the time in the heart of the Italian capital. 2 Against 1, featuring Jack White.
Make no mistake, I don't do anything for free. I keep my enemies closer than my mirror ever gets to me. And if you think that there is shelter in this attitude, where do you feel the warmth of my gratitude? I get the feeling that it's 2 against 1. I'm already fighting me, so what's another one? The mirror is a trigger and your mouth's a gun. Lucky for me, I'm not the only one. And if it looks to me like you and your reflection plan to add your own fight to this dimension, then tell it that this ain't no free for all to see. There's only 3. It's just you and me against me. I get the feeling that it's 2 against 1. I'm already fighting me, so what's another one? The mirror is a trigger and your mouth's a gun. Lucky for me, I'm not the only one. Lucky for me, I'm not the only one. And if your foot's on too sick of bouncing yes men plan to break into the middle of this little plan, then they should plan to hear me say that I won't play around the way. Anyway, I plan around them. I get the feeling that it's 2 against 1. I'm already fighting me, so what's another one? The mirror is a trigger and your mouth's a gun. Lucky for me, I'm not the only one. Lucky for me, I'm not the only one.
It's in the studios of Forum Music Village, nestled under the imposing church of Piazza Euclide, that the 2 friends settle in. It was there that, at the end of the 60s, 4 of the most famous composers of the time, Ennio Morricone, Armando Travioni, Piero Piccioni and Luis Bacalov, set up their headquarters. We had to find a space capable of accommodating 150 musicians, because that's how film music was recorded at the time. This underground place, full of dark corridors, exudes a very special atmosphere. It's magical to think that between these walls were shaped the greatest and most famous Western music. We were in a secret myth factory. The two accomplices then set out to find the musicians of the time. I didn't want a tribute album made by contemporary musicians, explains Danger Mouse. Many groups try to reproduce Morricone's sound. It's commendable, but I wanted to go further. Luppi oversees this hunt for veterans. He has already met a few of them during the development of an Italian story. To manage the studio, he calls on Fabio Patrignani, son of Franco Patrignani, who worked as a sound engineer for Morricone or Bacalov. Fabio learned everything thanks to his father. He grew up in this studio, started as an assistant on Once Upon a Time in America, sitting between Sergio Leone and Ennio Morricone. He was the ideal man. Black, featuring Norah Jones.
We touched the walls of a city streets and didn't explain, sadly showed us our ways. I've never asked him why. Cast down, it was heaven sent, and to the church, no intent to repent. On my knees, just to cry. Until you travel to that place you can come back, where the last pain is gone and all that's left is black. Gray nights he's coming to me, and someday they'll punish my deeds and they'll find all the crimes. But then they ask when they're gonna see them. Then they're gonna ask to feel the ghosts, the walls, the dreams. Well, I've got mine. At last, those coming came, and they never looked back. With blinding stars in their eyes, but all they saw was black. Fooled them, hoping to seem like the slayer of evil, but the product of greed. And it's not a mask, so be honest with me. We can't afford to ignore that I'm the disease. Practical since we had to be, and when they were old, they came back to me and they tried. Oh, they tried. And when you follow through and wind up on your back, looking
Our duo then knocks on the door of the elders. Most of the musicians who played for Morricone are now 70 years old. They have retired. It's therefore impossible to consider a contract. It's with bottles of good wine and bows that the pair convinces them to participate. On the bill of Rome, we also find the choir I Cantori Moderni, supervised by Alessandro Alessandroni, the man to whom we owe the legendary whistles of the soundtrack of Once Upon a Time in the West. Coming from the rock formation The Four Caravels, Alessandroni was the first to encourage Ennio Morricone to open his music to electric instruments and surf guitars. I Cantori Moderni, the rebellious choir he led in the 60s, illuminated the most famous soundtracks of the genre before reforming for Rome. Alessandro is a formidable character. He has worked as well with pop groups as with classical orchestras. His choir embodies the sound of a spaghetti western, a brutal, almost punk chant, at the antipodes of the virtuoso voices of opera. The choir matched the heroes of westerns, wild, rogue. The two musicians summon a second legendary Italian formation, I Mark Quattro, which could be the equivalent of the Wrecking Crew, the Californian backing band employed by Phil Spector for his Wall of Sound. Official orchestra of the Rai, I Mark Quattro participated in many musics of Morricone and Piero Umiliani. Most of these musicians had not been in the same room for 30 years. They first responded to our invitation for that. Problem Queen, featuring Norah Jones.
Have you
For 5 years, excited like philatelists at the Stamp Biennale, Luppi and Danger Mouse will also roam the streets and bars of Rome in search of vintage instruments. They recover an organ named Eco Tiger in a cafe in the capital. It had ended up there as a decorative element, an aberration when you know the rare sound of this machine. The duo is also looking for an instrument called Fender 6, a mix between an electric guitar and a bass with a typical sound of the time. There are few of them. They find their happiness at Fabio Pignatelli's, an Italian group known for its giallo music, including the terrifying soundtrack of Dario Argento's Thrill of Anxiety. Giallo is an Italian film genre on the border of crime, horror and eroticism. The pair completes their search in a Roman garage, where they find a psychedelic organ. There's a guy in Rome who divides his time between old Vespas, which he repairs, and vintage instruments, which he collects. It's called Beat Garage. We found incredible equipment there, in the middle of old bikes. In parallel with the search for musicians and instruments, Danger Mouse and Luppi ride the pieces of Rome. We spent a lot of time on it, because we were also working on other projects. Moreover, we really wanted to consider the album as a series of songs, not as the imaginary soundtrack of a non-existent film. The pieces composed, the musicians and the material gathered, all that remains for Luppi and Danger Mouse is to find the voices of Rome. It wasn't planned, but we realized that the record has taken the form of a rather universal love dialogue. It didn't talk about cowboys or westerns, but about a timeless couple's story. It seemed logical to have it sung by a man and a woman, says Danger Mouse. The World, featuring Norah Jones.
The world is a running run. Take a look, cold and always blue.
Two big names come to complete the cast of Rome. Jack White and Norah Jones will respond to each other. I had met Jack when he was touring with the White Stripes. I had the impression that he had a somewhat reductive image of me, that he saw me as a kind of DJ or a guy who only does hip-hop. I made him listen to the sketches of Rome so that he would understand that I was interested in other things. A few months later, I sent him an email to propose that he sing. He accepted immediately, and Norah Jones followed a little later. Fruit of this dazzling distribution, Rome is an album both classic and resolutely contemporary, with cottony atmospheres, round organs, basses as if escaped from a chapter of the history of Melody Nelson. Without ever stealing the show, White and Jones nourish an album which, by its modernity, reminds us how much Morricone's production was at the forefront. If we can often think of the maestro, we can also evoke his numerous disciples, from Air to Sébastien Tellier, from Massive Attack to Portishead.